again, ordinary people think, oh, we couldn't have leaders who plan horrible things for us. That wouldn't happen. They wouldn't intentionally do it. They have good intentions. They wouldn't never want to starve 80 million people to death, would they? Well, here's the counter case. Here's a case where 80 million people were starved to death. It was covered up for a long time, and the numbers, the more research has been done, have been going up and up and up. We're around 80 million now. First it was only 2 million, 10 million, 15 million. It got higher and higher, and it seems to be in this order, which is phenomenal. I mean, this is really very, very sad and very tragic. What happened? What is this famine in China? It started in a year when there was a bumper crop. So good harvest. Now, if you want to engineer a famine, is not a great starting point. But because it happened at this point, it makes clearer that it was an intentional starvation of millions of people. Because you had to take a particular combination of very specific policies to get this disastrous outcome. And they're all policies. There's actually no doubt, no historian says it wasn't policies that led to this famine. They just all, whether Western or Chinese historians, they all say, well, but sure, but it was a mistake. They didn't intend this. Well, when it's such a very specific combination of highly unusual policies, which are, however, are necessary to have this outcome of a famine, then you really have to wonder, And it wasn't under duress. They were freely taken. So there is no doubt that it was a policy-induced outcome. The debate is, was it intentional or not? Well, I'll give you some of the ingredients of this famine. So if you want to start a famine, when you have bumper crops, you got to do some things. I mean, otherwise there won't be a famine. For example, what can you do? Think about it. What can you do? Well, we could actually pass some laws that round up all the harvest workers and transport them from the rural areas to the cities. So let's do that. Well, that's what they did. And I know from growing up in Bavaria, when the harvest comes, that's when the schoolboys and schoolgirls and students getting asked, can you please help the farmers? We've got a big crop. We need helpers, and you earn some money per hour, which is nice. Everyone that's the harvest time, right? But if you divert millions of people, forcibly transporting them away from the rural areas at harvest time or just around harvest time, that's certainly something you can do to disrupt the delivery of food in that year. So that was taken. Now, it turned out to be not enough because, farmers are resourceful, and partly they had ways to still harvest a lot of the crops. Now, there is a natural or, seemingly natural way you could reduce a harvest. And if you read the Bible, in bad years, horrible things happen, like swarms of locusts come and eat up the crops.
Yes.
Which is actually, clearly not every year. It's unusual. It's so unusual that when it happens, it's recorded for thousands of years, like in the Bible. Wouldn't it be nice to arrange for that? Well, in a bumper crop year, right? If your goal is to have a famine, of course, that's not so easy to arrange, right? Is it? Particularly at a day and age where we did not yet have the insect laboratories where they breed various forms of genetically modified, insects that could do all sorts of evil stuff. That wasn't yet happening. But also it's unlikely that it would be swarms and swarms of locusts, millions of locusts eating the harvest, because in China, there was a natural enemy of the giant grasshoppers, the locusts, namely the ordinary Asian tree sparrow.
Yes.
and in fact, in China, it's estimated there's around 700 million of them, the tree sparrows. And they would, in the development of the locusts, they intervene at the right point and they eat them and their larvae and so on. So you really, if you wanted to have swarms of locusts, you would need nobody would think this up, surely, but you would need a very specific policy they would declare the ordinary Asian tree sparrow enemy number one that has to be killed and exterminated. And of course, that's what Mao did. And what happened was swarms of locusts destroyed quite a bit of the harvest. That's increasingly being studied, and it's quite clear that such a specific policy in this chain and this natural, biological cycle where you intervene and destroy the enemy of the locusts as a specific policy, that surely can't be by accident. Now, still, it wasn't quite enough, 480 million famine. So now you need the usual Soviet-style policies, which is to sequester the harvest. The government moves in and seizes the harvest, and it's taken from the people, and it's not being sold. Or some of it is exported abroad.
To Romania. Exactly.
And then some farmers have some storage, because actually farmers always think of next year's crop. You want to keep some to plant next year. That's before genetically modified, things were invented to destroy that natural cycle of farmers' behavior. So they went after those farmers. Anyone who stored food was declared a bourgeois, hoarder, and enemy of the people, and was severely punished. And of course, the food and the grain and all the storage was taken away. So put all this together, and of course, on top of that, various communist campaigns, the famine took place, and it was such a horrible disaster. And as I said, we're around 80 million as an estimate of people who starved as a policy result. So we have to realize that our leaders don't mind killing us. In fact, they seem quite keen on killing ordinary